Hello and welcome to The Gun Show by Mama Bear Defense. I'm Crystal Reese and I will be hosting today's show. We have some guests in the lineup. It's just trying to figure out their schedules with our schedule, my schedule, and figure out how we can get them on. So don't worry, you won't have to listen to me alone for too long. There was a lot of news this week, right? It was a crazy week this last little bit. And don't worry, I'm not going to cover the impeachment of Trump or the storming of Capitol too much. I mean, you guys have heard about it incessantly, nonstop for a week. And yeah, I'm over it. Maybe not over it, but anywho, I'm going to start by something that happened on the 8th. So last Friday was a commemoration of an event that happened to one of our congresswomen, Gabby Giffords. She, in 2011, was shot in the head in an assassination attempt and mass shooting just outside of Tucson during an event with constituents. And that's not cool, right? Any attempts like that, that's horrible. And so Joe Biden brought it up. And he said, 10 years ago today in Tucson, Arizona, 6 innocent lives were taken away by a senseless and brutal act of violence. Jill and I remember those we lost and everyone whose lives were irreversibly changed that day, including my friend, Congresswoman, and then he tagged her. So then she replied, I'm going to share the screen for those of you watching. Here we go. Then she replied, 10 years ago, my life and my community changed forever. I was shot in the head. 6 people were killed, 12 others injured. This is horrible. I mean, this is not a cool thing, right? That's atrocious. But the attack did not break me or the people I represent in Congress. We came together, turned pain into purpose, and found hope in each other. Okay, cool. Well, Joe Biden replies with this: your perseverance and immeasurable courage continue to inspire me and millions of others. This is the part. I pledge to continue to work with you and with survivors, families, and advocates across the country to defeat the NRA and end our epidemic of gun violence. Well, shoot. I actually was getting a little hopeful because I'm like, maybe part of his platform saying gun violence, blah, 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 with just something that they say, but nothing really happens, right? A lot of politicians just run their mouth to get in the office and then they don't follow through. And that might still be the case. I mean, he's running his mouth, but maybe nothing will really happen. I hope nothing will happen. But that's a very recent attack on our Second Amendment rights. Yeah, it's a bummer that it's on the forefront of his mind. And clearly his original post was to spark emotion and be like, oh, gun violence, you know, to bring that up and commemorate. I mean, that's, like I said, that's not cool. Okay, speaking of Biden, before you're like, oh no, now everything's going to fall apart. He did go in an interview and explain what his top 3 priorities are as soon as he gets into office. And here's what I'm going to do for you guys. I am going to listen to all of the extreme, or I'm going to listen to the Biden talks. I'm going to listen to the Pelosi talks. I'm going to listen to all of the leaders of the government. And I'm listening for Second Amendment stuff. I really want to know. I don't want to be blindsided. I know it's really difficult for me to listen to them because I don't believe in their ideology. And so it is a little mind-numbing. But on the flip side, I also want to be prepared. And when I was listening to this Biden speech, I was comforted by his response to the question of the first 3 things he plans to do. So I'm going to pull up the speech. You're going to hear it from the horse's mouth, right? Not from me. Let me back up a little bit.
detailed. What are your legislative priorities? You've talked about infrastructure. You've talked about introducing an immigration bill. After January 20th, Democrats will control the House and the Senate. What do you do first?
Three different issues there in that same question. One, the commitments I made that what I would introduce, not necessarily we would move to, but introduce in the United States Congress first, I will do. I will introduce an immigration bill.
Okay, immigration.
And have it sent to the appropriate committees to begin movement. I will, in fact, countermand executive orders that the president has, in fact, initiated that are contrary to what I think is either his authority and or even if it's authority contrary to the interests of the United States on environmental issues and a whole range of other things. And thirdly, I will immediately move, though, to the most urgent need of asking the Congress to give me the financial wherewithal to deal with the virus.
COVID relief.
To be able to move so that we have Operation Warp Speed really working. Warp Speed got the vaccine to places that were delivered, but did not get them from those vials into people's arms. And so it is a gigantic logistical concern of how we do that. I'm committed to get 100 million shots in people's arms in the first 100 days. Yikes. I'm committed to insisting that on all federal jurisdictions, any place I have control as president, everyone will be mandated to wear a mask in interstate transportation as well as federal facilities. And thirdly, I'm committed to moving as rapidly as possible to get the vaccine to teachers and the material to children that can provide for the safe opening of our schools at the end of that, beginning at the end of that 100 days. They're the most urgent things we have to do now, immediately upon getting office. There's going to be multiple things, as you well know, because you're a seasoned veteran of how this policy, how we work. And that is that there will be other committees will be holding hearings on a whole range of issues, from my positions on infrastructure, what we should be doing to generate a green economy, and so on. But in terms of the immediate need to get done, not just introduced, but to get done, voted on, and get the money and resources to do it, it turns out that the most urgent need is dealing with the virus, number one, and economic relief to Americans who, through no fault of their own, are really getting battered.
Okay, so you heard it. And I was happy to hear that gun control or our gun epidemic is not in the top 3 of those. And I actually heard that before I saw Biden's tweet. I went through his tweets after the fact. So I was like, okay, we're safe for a little bit. And then I read his tweet. But we are safe, I would say, at least for the first 100 days, because he really wants to focus, he said, immigration, removing all of Trump's laws. You know, Trump passed a bump stock ban. I'd be fine if you remove that, Biden. And then also COVID relief. So that's kind of where we're looking at with Biden presidency so far, things to look out for. Speaking of looking out for, Maryland is trying to pass the same California style ammunition ban, or not ban, making you do background checks to acquire ammunition and get a card and whatnot, which kind of sucks. So if you're in Maryland, you might want to contact, it's called House Bill 175. Contact your local legislators and let them know you do not like that. That is just an extra step, makes it a lot more difficult. And another thing is they won't approve, a lot of times they won't approve you to purchase ammunition if you haven't purchased a gun, and they can't track it to it. Excuse me. I know California was like that. Like if you didn't have a gun and you hadn't purchased or registered a gun, then they wouldn't let you purchase ammunition. So it's kind of not cool. Joe Manchin. So Manchin. He is the tiebreaker in the Senate. because we have 50 Democrats, 50 Republicans, and then he is a Democrat senator for a Republican state. And they're saying that he's going to be the tiebreaker, and basically he is. They asked him about guns, and he's like, there has to, this is what he said, there has to be responsibility in gun ownership. I'm not going to eliminate people having their gun. And then he follows up, they shouldn't be scared to death of Democrats on their Second Amendment taking their guns away. So now, we're not going to take people's guns away, but there is things that there are, right? There is things that we should not have in people's hands. Little bit of an oxymoron. Like, how do you interpret that? We're not taking your guns away, but there's certain things you shouldn't have in your hands. Like what? So there's that kind of, we're going to be hearing a lot more bummer news, but we have a lot of good news this week as well. December 2020, new record for background checks, and not just background checks, gun sales for the entire year, record month. Let me pull up how much. So there was 39.6 million background checks. And I believe in December alone, 1.9 million new guns were sold. So it just barely falls short of 2015. Interesting. Oh, right before Trump got in with 2.22 million. Which, I think that's a comfort, realizing that we've had this before. People have freaked out before. There have been no guns available. Guns prices were hiked up, jacked up. I know we're a lot of doomsday right now, but there is a chance that we'll return to normal. It doesn't have to escalate. I know that sucks for the news, right? And getting people to watch, but really, we might calm down. Because of our storming of the Capitol, there are several local city capitals and state capitals that used to allow firearms on the premises that are now voting to remove that and make them gun-free zones, which is kind of a bummer that that's the result of stupidity. But I mean, there has to be results to our actions, right? Me personally, I think the protests, I would have been at the protest. Would I have stormed the Capitol? No. Personally, would not have done that. I don't think that was effective in getting the result. Actually, you had people not want to associate with you and not want to vote. People that were conservatives, and they didn't want to vote towards the president because of extremism, and they didn't want to associate with that. So I felt like it had ultimately a negative effect than if they had just waited on the outside and made their presence known. But, whether it was sabotage or not, it is what it is. There is a bill that was in Virginia, House Bill 961. It was a gun ban, but because they didn't do anything with it, it got dropped. So there's a little win. Doesn't mean they won't bring this gun ban back up, but there's a win for Virginia. Speaking of the East Coast, there's a win for New York. This one, I feel like is stretching it, but I'm happy that it passed. Okay, there was a New York Police Department detective who got caught with unlicensed weapons, and they were charging him, saying that he had unregistered firearms. And I'm going to share the screen so that you can see the particular firearm that he had. I mean, weapon. It's not a firearm. They were able to get him off. This is the weapon. It's a Mossberg Mossberg makes weapons, not some firearms, some weapons. They were able to get it off because it's a short, they were saying it was a short barreled rifle, but it's not, because rifles or shotguns, short barreled shotguns, are supposed to be held at the shoulder. But because of the grip here, it cannot be held on the shoulder. And its design, it is not based off of the wording in the New York law. They were able to say that this is just a weapon and it's not a firearm, and it's listed as other weapon. And he was able to get away with having this other weapon and not be charged with a firearm. So I thought that was an interesting one. Interesting because each state has their laws. Like, how does your state define a rifle or a gun or a shotgun? Like, what is in their definitions, and where's your loophole? To be honest, what's the loophole and how can you get around it? Montana, Utah, and Indiana are all considering a constitutional carry. Constitutional carry means that anyone above 21 years old can conceal carry. If they're eligible to purchase a firearm, then they can conceal it on their body. So if you're in those states, heck yeah, start paying attention. That's a cool, I think it's awesome. I live in a constitutional carry state right now in Kansas. And it's the first time. We had recently moved here, I guess a year ago now. Wow, time flies. And I thought it was the coolest thing ever. And you know what? I have had people approach me, even though they don't have to have the concealed carry permit, they want to take the class because they want the knowledge to carry. It's not because they want reciprocity per se. They want to feel comfortable. Most people that are sane are not going to hide a gun on their body. And obviously there's statistics to show that constitutional carry does not have higher violence than permit carry, right? So woohoo, hopefully those pass. I'm looking forward to that. And then here's something that's interesting that I found as I was searching, you know, with all of the bans of different conservative platforms like Parler. Well, I used to use a news group, a Second Amendment news group, guns.com, and they've been removed from the internet. And I don't know if anyone knows why, comment on here. But I was like, dang it, I liked some of their articles. Last bit of good news is Ohio, their governor signed a no duty to retreat, which is awesome. They used to have a duty to retreat law. That sucks. A duty to retreat means if bad guys coming at you, you're supposed to run away. You cannot protect yourself. Like, your first action, you can get in trouble if you did not try to run away first. And yeah, that's not a cool law. And so, woohoo, good job, Ohio. He brought it back in. Apparently there's some mixed emotions by Ohioans about this governor. I had someone comment saying that they feel like he's very Democrat, but at least he voted that in. And you know what? I'll take my Second Amendment rights back, please, and thank you. That is where we're sitting at with the news this week. And I hope you guys are doing well. Hope the Biden understanding what his first three priorities kind of calmed you down a little bit. And we'll just stay vigilant, stay prepared in what ways we can. Have a great week, and I will see you next time. Bye.